guys! I wanted to make a quick video on a topic that I haven't seen very many people discuss, and it seems to be coming up a lot more now that it's winter. Right now it's January, the beginning of January 2018, and it seems to be that a lot of people are still ordering and importing lithops in particular. And when we do that this time of year, there brings up some factors that aren't usually discussed other times. And I was just thinking about the other day the fact that I really should be a bit more conscious about putting the dates into my videos, because sometimes when I'm talking about their life cycle and what you want to do with them when you're potting them up, I'm specifically talking about what you would want to do based on the time of year. And so I am going to work on being a bit more specific when I am making videos and letting you know what time of year it is. But the reason that matters is when you're importing, particularly, which a lot of people that sell online in Facebook groups, etc., are importing these guys and then selling them from here. And when they're imported, they are shipped bare root, completely bare, usually, and a lot of times the growers that we're ordering from leave them bare root for an extended period of time so that they're ready to ship whenever they get the orders in. So they'll, maybe have a pile or a case of bare rooted lithops waiting, and then when those sell, then they'll do some more. But sometimes the period between removing the dirt and shipping can be quite a bit. And so when even if this time of year, even if a grower overseas removed the dirt right prior to shipping, it can take 2-3 weeks average for an order to show up here. So that's 3 weeks, 2 to 3 weeks of them not having dirt and not having moisture, nutrition, anything that they're used to. And so when we do that, they often get a bit anemic is the best phrase that I can use. And they don't adapt right into their life cycle as they usually would. And so this time of year in the winter, lithops should be forming a new set of leaves. If you're ordering from overseas, depending on where you're ordering from, they could be in a completely different hemisphere, which is a whole nother issue. But provided they're coming from the same hemisphere as you and it's winter from where they were ordered, then you would want to care for them a bit differently than you would if you were ordering them in the summer and they were showing up bare root in the summer. My son came in and was just standing here waiting, and I saw that he wasn't going to leave. He's very patient and he wasn't going to leave, so I had to pause and check with him. So anyways, when you're ordering lithops this time of year, you need to care for them a bit differently, possibly, especially depending on their root system. So like I said, lithops should be in this hemisphere during the winter, in the process of creating a new set of leaves, and the old set will split and the new set will emerge. And for this video, I didn't get any plants. I didn't want to do that. I just wanted to talk. But if you're not familiar with that, you can look at some of my other videos, or there's lots of videos online showing the different life cycles. And well, I shouldn't say lots of videos online, but there are videos showing what I'm talking about. And generally, when lithops are in this stage, it's often referred to as their dormant stage, which technically it's not really, as it's a very active growth period. It's just that to us it looks slow, and so it's their dormant phase. But anyways, usually you would be not watering at all, almost, or restricting in a really big way their water at this time of year. However, when you get plants that are imported this time of year, the priority shifts from keeping the leaves from stacking, which is what they call it when you get more than one set of leaves. If you water while they are creating another set of leaves, they will wind up with 2 sets of leaves, which isn't a healthy growth pattern for lithops, and it will shorten their lifespan, generally speaking. So usually we really want to avoid that. And to avoid that, we don't water, and the outer leaves use their moisture and they feed the inner leaves to grow, and the outer leaves slowly shrivel and fall away and the inner leaves emerge. And typically we start watering once the outer leaves have completely shriveled off and become dry, and then we can start watering the new set of leaves without worrying that it will confuse its growth pattern in a detrimental way or a potentially detrimental way. Just because lithops have two sets of leaves doesn't mean that they're doomed, but it takes a bit more work and focus to get them back to their normal growth pattern, if that makes sense. So when we get plants this time of year, the priority shifts from the leaves to the roots. And when root damage is present, which is almost always in bare root shipping, especially importing, then we have to focus on root health more than the leaf health. And my guess is this video is going to get some thumbs down, which I could care less, because this isn't talked about very often at all, especially online, especially on YouTube. The fact is, most of the really good, knowledgeable growers don't write blogs, don't make YouTube videos, etc., which is one of the reasons that I am trying to get some of this information out there. Not that I'm putting myself up as an expert grower by any means, but this type of information is often found more in research papers, etc., than in the really common, readily available things online today. And hopefully that will change. That's and I believe it will. There's just always a little bit of a delay when a lot of the really great growers are of an older generation. And they're not putting stuff on YouTube. They're not, they're writing papers for plant journals and stuff like that. And most of us more hobby growers aren't subscribed to those types of journals to be getting this type of information. And so that's why I work hard to put out information that isn't quite as readily available, if that makes sense. And for whatever reason, I have a ability to take information from lots of different sources and kind of curate it into a lot more understandable format for people. And this is partially due to just because I have a lot of experience with plants, not as many years with succulents, but because of my extensive research and growing and working with plants, I'm able to kind of apply a lot of what is just basic botany to succulents, and it works well. And it seems like not very many people that are doing that, which there are plenty of people doing it, but not very many people are putting the content on YouTube, Facebook, or really readily available places. So I am trying to do that, but yeah, let me calibrate my thoughts here for just a second. So just because this information kind of goes against potentially a lot of the common information that you're finding, please, if you're questioning what I'm saying here, do a little bit of research in some of the lesser found areas, and if you find actual evidence that I'm wrong, please do comment below. But there's pretty substantial research on this, and just in knowing how plants develop, that when a plant is when the root system is extremely depleted, dehydrated, exposed to air for long periods of time, etc., all of which occur during bare root shipping. When you're importing bare root shipping in the US, a few days of being out of soil, like if you're ordering from someone on Facebook or a nursery or something, most often they're taking the soil off of the plant right before they ship it to you, and at most it's in a box for a week or so when it gets to you, and that is a bit of a different condition, and the roots generally aren't in as bad of shape when that happens. However, a lot of growers, like I said, are importing and then shipping to you, and they don't want to repot the plants before they ship them out again, so that really extends the amount of time that these plants are out of soil and the damage that occurs to their root systems because of that. So When we get lithops this time of year, I always water them. And it doesn't matter that it's at the risk of the leaves stacking potentially, or not dying back, which is what stacking means, not dying back and having the new leaf as you would usually expect. So some experts even suggest soaking them for 24 hours, completely immersed in water when you order them this time of year and they've been imported. Any time of year is it's a great thing to do, but at other times of year it's less worrisome because you're supposed to be watering them, if that makes sense. So in the summer, for example, when you get them, whenever I get bare root plants, which I don't know that I've mentioned this in videos, but I always wet the root system before I plant them. I soak it really good in room temperature or slightly warm water, and just give it a really good soak before I plant them. Just the bare roots underwater. But many people put them in I shouldn't say many people, some experts put them in a soak. You can just put them in plain water. If the root system is really looking sad and kind of dead, you can soak them in a more stimulating solution like the vitamin B1. It's kind of a smelly liquid that usually comes in a blue bottle. There's probably other brands. I always buy it in a blue bottle. But it's B1. It's a rooting. It's not a hormone, but it's a rooting stimulator. It encourages root growth, and it actually works. And I use them on plants that are struggling, or use that on plants that are struggling a fair amount. I haven't ever soaked lithops in it. I have watered them and thoroughly wet them with it, with a mixture of the vitamin B1 after planting them, but I haven't soaked them in it. But other people do, even for up to 24 hours, like I said. And so, and that is because if the root system doesn't re-engage and wake up, so to speak, because when the roots are exposed to air for that long, they kind of go dormant, and then they start dying if they're not supplied with moisture and soil in a reasonable amount of time. And so sorry, my brain just had a little space again. So the roots getting woken up, so to speak, is your priority, because if the roots do not wake up and they do not start producing new growth, there is zero chance that your lithop is going to survive anyways without the root system. So even if it is looking like your lithop is having new leaves emerge, etc., giving it a bit of a soak. I've talked about trimming roots in other videos, which is a great thing to stimulate new root production. But once you plant them, giving them a water if you haven't soaked them before, and even if you have, giving them a little bit of a water or a little bit of a mist is really necessary, unless you live in an extremely humid environment where they can get a lot of moisture out of the air. And even then, giving these guys a jolt, a good dip, a good soak, some rooting stimulant of some kind, etc., is really wise to help their roots wake up and to ensure that you're not just going to plant it in a dry mix, wait all winter, and it's not going to reproduce its new set of leaves. No new growth is going to happen, and it's just slowly going to die. A lithop that has its root system completely obliterated can look just fine in a pot for 6-8 months, sometimes even a year, depending on the condition. That's how slow it is to use up all of the moisture that is in its little body, so to speak. But when they aren't getting nutrients from the roots, they just don't have enough energy built up to create a new set of leaves. And if they don't create a new set of leaves, the old set of leaves is just going to die and your entire plant is going to be a goner. So when importing this time of year, be a little bit cautious about all of the general lithop advice and the don't water in the winter and the only water in the summer. And it doesn't matter how shriveled it gets, don't water it. If your lithop was purchased in soil, If it was purchased during the summer and planted and has had time to adjust, then absolutely. If your lithop is shriveling, don't worry, it's probably producing a new set of leaves, etc. And a lot of those guidelines are 100% accurate. The difference is importing in their dormant period in the winter months. If you get them completely bare root and you plant them, you don't trim the roots especially, and you plant them in bone dry potting medium of some variety or pumice or whatever, and you set them on a shelf and you leave them all winter waiting for the new growth to pop out, and nothing happens. That's probably because your root system died from lack of water and just the abuse of the bare root shipping at this time of year. I prefer and I would advise not to buy lithops this time of year. And I hope that's not upsetting. I'm not trying to say never, never, never. But when ordering bare root lithops, I would suggest not doing it in the winter, or ordering / buying plants that are not bare root in the winter, so that they've already had a bit of time to establish before this quiet period where they're using all of their energy to make these new leaves. Let me think if there's anything else. I feel like I must be forgetting these things. I'll just repeat again, even at the risk of seasonal confusion, so to speak, it is worth it to get their roots active again. And the truth is that watering lithops once or even twice at the wrong time rarely hurts them, is rarely lethal. And it's the sitting in water, it's the potting medium not being correct, and the soil staying moist instead of drying out really quick within a few hours or a day or two like they need. It's that is going to contribute more than a single watering or a single soaking, etc. of the roots. So just keep that in mind when you're ordering plants this time of year, and give the roots a little trim. With lithops, they have a tap root. You do not want to trim them all the way off. Trimming the side, I just went completely blank on the name, but the branching roots that are coming off from the side is a great idea. It'll just stimulate them to put out new root growth, and then wetting them, soaking them, depending on how good the root system look. Another thing is, if you're ordering this time of year and your lithop has just finished blooming, that shows you that it is not into the producing its leaves yet. It is just finishing up with blooming, and it's quite safe to water. At the end and during blooming is still a good time to water. They're using a ton of energy to make blooms, and so when they're shipped bare root while blooming, or if they were bare rooted before the blooming and they shipped while bare root waiting to bloom, which a lot of times you don't know, you'll get them and they'll have a little dead, or partially dead flower bud on the top, and it's really hard to know if the grower bare rooted them before or right before, and they've been bare root a while, or they did it right before they sent them to you, which you can always ask. And don't be shy about asking growers, have these guys been bare root for a while, etc. It'll give you an even better chance of survival. But if a lithop is blooming and the root system, or has just bloomed and the root system looks sad or is very, very small, etc., water those guys, even if it's January, even if it's December, even if it's February, and everyone is telling you, no, you can't water in the winter. Water them and focus on getting the root system active again, more than whatever life cycle it is in. And again, I know that's going to be really unpopular in some circles where people are so convinced about their seasons, but just speaking on a purely plant basis, not succulent specific, any plant whose root system is damaged significantly, that needs to be the priority, or else your entire plant will die because it cannot survive without the root system. So be aware of that. Don't be afraid of going against the common what's out there, and watering, guys, when you order them this time of year, it could save their life. And even if you confuse them a bit about which season it is, that can be remedied. That can be adjusted out, and they can be adjusted back into their right seasons. But once the root system is all the way gone, that can't be adjusted. That can't be really helped. Sometimes lithops that are completely broken off from their taproot can reroot. I have had it happen before, but it's pretty rare. They really like their taproots, and they really don't do well if the entire root system has collapsed. And being stressed with bare root shipping and importing, and then being put directly into bone dry mix for months on end, is kind of a death sentence for a lot of lithops. And I think that's why people have so much frustration with these, or part of the reason. There's multiple reasons why people have so much frustration with these, but the people that actually research and get information and are trying to care for them in the way that they need to be cared for, and they're not overwatering and just, you know, ignoring the general guidelines. It's really frustrating when you do things right and you plant them in dry mix and you don't water them just like you were told, and then 6 months later they're dying and there's nothing that you can do, and people say, I don't know, it's just a goner, you'll just, sorry about that. So yeah, that's annoying. It's really frustrating. So I thought, you know what, I'm gonna put this video out here, even though it's kind of against the normal grain, and even against some of the videos that that I've put out, because it's been in the summer and I've just been focused on, you know, on what needs to be done for that particular plant right now, and I didn't even think to specify. So I hope this is helpful for you guys. If you have a choice, ideally purchase lithops in the warmer months of the year so that this can be avoided and you can nurture the root system without as much worry about confusing it or stacking, etc. But if you do order them this time of year, don't panic. Just treat them a little bit differently, and yeah, and that should work well for you. I know it works very well for me. I get some comments about you shouldn't be watering them sometimes whenever I do certain things, but there are reasons that they need to be watered in off season, so to speak, or being watered when you wouldn't usually. So yeah, I think this video has gone on way longer than I thought it would, but I wanted to be sure and kind of give a good description so that you guys can get an idea of when you would or wouldn't want to do this and why things might change. And so if you see other people talking about this topic, please mention this, because this information needs to get out a lot more than it is, instead of just the capsule kind of blanket statement, water in the winter, or water in the summer, don't water in the winter, etc. There are always conditions that can change general guidelines, so keep that in mind. All right, you guys, I hope you're having a fantastic day and staying warm. And it's freezing. So much of the United States right now is just beyond cold, and so I hope you're staying warm, and if you're in another part of the world, I hope you're staying warm or cool there as well. And I will talk to you soon, and happy growing!